Now in today's video tutorial, we're going to be building a real app using some amazing tools. Not only are we going to be using FlutterFlow for our front end, but we're also going to be using Supabase for our backend, and we're going to be using Typesense for our search engine that is going to be synced in real time with our Supabase backend. And so that way you get the best of both worlds. And on top of that, we're also going to be using GraphQL to create amazing views and amazing screens for our app. And so sit back, relax, and enjoy the tutorial. And definitely let me know what you guys think after watching the video. Now, before we get started, as always, all the apps and all the resources that I discuss and cover on this channel can be viewed and or cloned by becoming a member of our amazing Patreon community. And if you're still not a member, then you're greatly missing out. So definitely check out our amazing Patreon community using the first link in the description below the video. Now, the app that we're going to be building is going to be a job search app. So we're going to be using FlutterFlow, we're going to be using Supabase with GraphQL, and we're going to be using Typesense for fast searching and indexing. And the app is going to have the following pages. Okay, so this is going to be the home page here, where the user will be able to search for different jobs. They'll also be able to filter, different filtering here. And this is going to be the list that they're going to see here. Now, once they search, they're going to be seeing this result page, which is going to look very similar to this, except the UI is going to look slightly different. They'll be able to save stuff and do a couple of other things here. And if they like a particular job and they want to learn more about it, they'll be able to click on a specific job opportunity here. And here they're going to be redirected to the job detail page where they'll be able to get more information about the specific job. And on this job detail page, they'll also be able to apply. Okay. And last but not least, we're also going to have a My Profile page where they can see the jobs that they have saved, maybe the jobs that they have applied, accepted, rejected, stuff like that. And if we have some time, we'll also create a employer section where the employer who actually posted these jobs will be able to see the jobs that they have posted, as well as the jobs that were applied for by the job applicants, because the app will support this kind of behavior. Now, the schema for the app is going to be rather straightforward. We're going to have 4 main tables. So here we have the users table, which is going to be an additional table on top of the built-in users table that Supabase comes with, because we need a couple of extra fields here. We're going to have the companies table where we are going to be listing various companies. The companies is going to list various jobs, okay? And then you have the applications, and these are the people that will be applying for each of the jobs right here. And as you can see, users may link to different companies, right? So inside the companies, you're going to have the owner ID, which is going to be the user here. And then if you look at jobs, you're going to have the company ID, and that's going to link to this company here. And then in the applications, you're going to have the user ID, which is going to be one of these, as well as the job ID, which is going to be one of these here. Okay, so a very straightforward schema that's going to be easy to implement and easy to build an app with. Next, we're going to log into my Supabase account and create a project for this app. So here I am looking at my Supabase project. I'm going to go ahead and create a new project here, and we're going to go ahead and call this a job search. Just create a random password here. All right, so now it's creating our project. We need to give it a couple of moments. Now, with the project created, we are ready to create our tables. Okay, so if we come over here into our projects, we go into authentication. We have authentication built in automatically. And so while we're here, it's a good idea to create a user that you can log into your app with. Okay, so we're going to create a sample user here. We're going to auto confirm the user so that it's active. Okay, so now we have this user. And if we go to our table editor here and we go into auth and we click over here, we can see that we have this users, and we should have this record over here, okay, that we've just created. And so now we are ready to create the other tables. And if you recall, this table here it's going to have just the stuff that we can store in the other user, right? So it has this role, but the role that we're looking for here is different. This is going to be just either as an employee or employer, right? So different role. And so we need to create a new table. So I'm going to go ahead and create a new table. And instead of calling it users over here, because this table is called users, I'm just going to say users extension. Okay, that's what I'm going to call it. And I'm just going to fill in the fields that don't exist there. So we have email, full name. Yeah, let's do full name, role, avatar. So these three fields we need to do. So I'm going to say full name, avatar. So this is text, this is text, this is text. And we also need to create a link to the other table, okay? Because this is like an auxiliary table. So I'm going to go ahead and create something called a foreign key. And we're going to say this is a user ID. We're going to click this. We're linking it to this table here and linking it to a field called ID. And that automatically fills in the field so that the fields are correct. And it creates this little record here. This is our foreign key relation. I'm going to go ahead and hit save. Next, we need to go ahead and create this auxiliary table that expands on the original users table with some of these extra fields. And typically, I like to call this users extension. And the fields that we need are going to be just full name, role, avatar, URL, because we already have the email field. So I'm going to go ahead and say full name. I'm going to say role. And I'm going to say avatar, URL, and these are all text fields. And we also need the link to the original table, which is the user ID that's going to be linking to that built-in table. And so before we fill out the field, we can click over here. We can say auth, click here, users, hit save. Okay, so now we have this table and we also have this foreign key relation. Gonna hit save. That goes ahead and creates it. All right, so now we have this table. The next table we need to create is this companies table. Let's do that real quick. Companies, gonna have name, description, website URL, logo URL, owner ID, which is the user, and that's it. So I'm going to move this foreign key up on top because I like to have it after the built-in fields. Click over here, auth, everything links back to this users table. And then this is text, everything is text. All of this is text, and we're going to hit save. Okay, next is the jobs table. New table, jobs. We're going to have the title, location, tags, for tagging this specific job, salary min, salary range, right? All good fields. Salary max is remote, status, and company ID. I'm gonna move company ID up on top. This is gonna link to the companies, and this is title, text. Tags are, it's an array. So I'm going to make it text, then I'm going to click over here and I'm going to define it as an array. Salary mint is just going to be this int2, is remote is a boolean, and status is text. And the last table are the actual applications, which is the records of people applying for the jobs. Applications, we have the job ID, the user ID, cover letter, resume URL, status, and that's it. So this is the job ID. Let's go ahead and do that. This is the user ID. Do that. Cover letter, what do we have as text? Resume URL is also text. Status is also text. Okay. All right. There we have it. So we have 4 tables along with the built-in users table that will form the schema for the data for this app. Now, the next thing that I like to do is I like to create some sample records that mimic real records. And that makes it a lot easier to test out the app and see how the app would behave with real users and real records, okay? So first, I'm going to jump over here and I'm going to create a couple of other users here so that they can mimic different roles. So we have this first user. I like to create typically 2 to 3 users here. I'm going to come over here and I'm going to say Mark, and they all follow the same pattern, okay? And I'll do another user called John. All right, so now we have 3 users. Now we can jump back into our tables and we can create records for each of these users in this extension table. So I'm going to come over here and start a row, and we're going to jump this, select the record. Let's do for James first. James, and so this is James, no code. Role is employee. Okay, so potentially someone applying, right? Unlike an employer. So avatar URL, I'm just going to put Google. We'll fix that later. And I'll do the same for the other two records. Next, we're going to go ahead and create some sample records for the companies first. And in fact, I want to use AI Assistant to do that. Okay, and we're going to say create 5 sample records for the companies table. Okay, this is what it got. So name, description, website URL, logo. But we also need an owner ID. Make sure you link each record to the owner ID in the users, auth users. All right, that is what we got. So it even got the owner ID. So hopefully these are the right IDs. Let's go ahead and execute this. Okay, success, no rows. Okay, let's go ahead and refresh that. And there we have it. So now we have companies. Let's do the same for jobs. Now create 5 sample records in the jobs table. Make sure to include all the needed fields, ID, and created that. Go ahead and run this. All right, let's go ahead and run the query. So we're getting small int out of range. Let's debug it. The issues. Okay, so now it should work. And there we have it. So now we have jobs. And last but not least, let's also create applications. Now create 5 sample applications. All right, there we have it. All right, so now we have a bunch of sample records, right? So for users extension, we have this, 2 employees, 1 employer. For jobs, we have jobs. Next, we have the companies, right? So here are the companies. And then we have the jobs. 1 job per company. It seems like that was created, some good records. And then we have the applications, right? 1 application per job listing. Okay, so this is the status. Resume. Okay, so now we have the sample data and we are ready to jump into FlutterFlow and start building our app. Next, let's go ahead and install Typesense on our own server. Now, when you head over to typesense.org, you have a couple of options when it comes to setting up Typesense. You can either do quick start, which includes self-hosting, or you can simply use one of their own setups via this Typesense Cloud. So if you click on Typesense Cloud, you can kind of learn more about it. Over here, you can click on pricing and you can kind of learn more how much it's going to cost. So the cluster is going to work out to $21 a month. You have this, you have this, you have all of that. Or you can set it up yourself. And from my experience, it can be cheaper than this, but not by a lot. Okay, it's a database, so it needs a lot of memory. It needs certain resources. And so, you're going to save a little bit, depending on how you set it up, but not a lot, okay? And so let me show you how this is set up. So if we click on Quick Start and you click on Install Typesense over here, you can see that we have Typesense Cloud for option 1. Option 2 is local machine self-hosting. And this is actually really, really easy. And so over here, what you want to do is you want to just copy all of this. Now, before I run this command, I need to make sure that I have Docker running. Docker is a special piece of software that creates containerized applications, which makes it super easy to run all kinds of apps inside of all kinds of hardware. So you don't have to set up and deal with all the details and all of these things. So I'm going to go ahead and run these commands line by line. So first we set the API key. Next we create this directory. Okay, now I already should have this directory. So it's telling me I have it. And now I'm going to run this over here. And that will automatically set up Typesense for me and run it with just one command. Super, super easy. Now I get a lot of messages, and if you're not seeing any errors, you might see something like Typesense peering service is running here. And so that means Typesense is now running. And that means I can simply pull up my server's address and use this port over here, 8108, which is the port that we specified in the command. As you can see, this is the port that we specified here. Now, if I try to access this from a web browser, I get a message, something similar to this. In fact, you might get an exact message. And this means that the server is running. It's just you're not supposed to access it via the web browser. But it is running. Everything is fine. Now, the only issue that we have right now is that Typesense by default does not come with a dashboard, okay? And so if you're comfortable accessing it using APIs and stuff like that, then that is absolutely fine. We can keep working. But if you want to have like a visual interface, you want to have a dashboard, you want to see how things are laid out, then I highly recommend that you install a dashboard as well. And if you go to GitHub and you search for Typesense Dashboard or Typesense Dashboard, you're gonna end up on this project here. And this is a fully working Typesense dashboard that you can simply install and run. It's an open source project. Now, if you scroll down, you can see that they are giving you commands that you can use to run this. So what I recommend is to simply run this. That's gonna go ahead and build a container from the image. All right, and now we simply run this, and that's gonna go ahead and launch this Typesense dashboard. Okay, and so now we can access it directly here. If I remove the port, and there's the dashboard. And so now we need to enter all the values. Here we need to put the IP address, XYZ, HTTP, the IP address here, the port, everything is fine. And here we're logged into our Typesense, right? So we can see everything. And you gotta admit, that's a lot better with a dashboard over not having a dashboard. Personally, I am a visual type of person, and so I want to see things. And so I can see that I have a books collection with no document, etc., etc. I can see, you know, search, all of these things. So this is going to be a lot more useful than not having this. Okay, so I highly recommend it, even though it's an optional step. All right, so now that we have Supabase and Typesense both set up and configured, let's start building the UI, and then I will show you how to get the data being displayed correctly in the UI. So the first page that we want to build is this main kind of home page, okay? So I'm just going to call this home, and I'm just going to call this job board. And then I'm just going to go ahead and mimic what I have here, okay? So we're going to start off with a search bar. I'm going to go ahead and duplicate this, and we're going to have a bunch of filters here as well. And let's go ahead and give it some padding to this card. Let's give the row some padding. Okay, and go ahead and remove that padding a little bit here. And let's go ahead and make this here, this one here, this one, give it the constraints so that they're split. They take up the third, each one takes a third. And this is going to say search jobs. Perfect. This is going to say search. Now this is going to be location, job type, and category. Let's go ahead and say location. And then we're going to have a list, a view. Let's do row, and then 2 columns. And then this is going to have an image. And this column is going to have 3 rows, representing 3 rows here. And this image, I'm going to make it a little bit smaller. Let's say 45 by 45. Maybe 50. Let's look at a bit bigger. 50, 50. Okay. And we'll do a little bit of padding inside. So we have this image. We have this is going to be text. And let's make this also have some padding. 10. And then what you want to do is you want to have the text inside the row. You want to give it full constraints so that there's no wrapping, clipping. It's going to wrap, but it's not going to clip. Okay, that's starting to look good. Let's make this a bit bigger. Let's make this, yeah, this is fine. All right, and actually, I want this one. I want it to have more padding on the left. So let's do something like this. Okay, in fact, another thing that we can do is we can have this row. You can do something like this, but that's going to be too much. Yeah, padding is the better. Make it a little bit even bigger, maybe 55. All right, so that's what we have over here. We have our UI. Let me go ahead and fix this up as well. This is one card. I'm going to go ahead and remove this, and that looks a lot better. In fact, I'm going to make the padding is 10. This is also 10. And then what we can do is, this is 10. Okay, so that's starting to look much better. And let's make it a little bit padding here. Yeah, that's not going to change it because it's fixed constraints. So let's do padding. We can do 5 or 10. All right, so we have the UI, and the idea is when they search, this is going to connect directly to Typesense. It's not going to be connecting to Supabase. But, you know, the data is going to be in Supabase. Supabase is going to be the source of truth. Okay, so here in this table, these jobs, this is going to be all Supabase, right? This is where the data is going to be. But when we search, it's going to go into Typesense. So if we go to our Typesense dashboard over here, we're going to have a collection called jobs, and that is where it's going to pull the data right? So they're gonna search any way they want, filtering, search for jobs using indexed fields, do filtering, anything, and that's going to pull up from Typesense. At least the main search one is gonna pull up from Typesense, okay? So the next thing that we need to do is we need to create a collection in Typesense and see how we can automatically pull data from Supabase. All right, so now we're gonna go ahead and create a collection in Typesense to do the searching for jobs. So we're gonna go into add collection and we're gonna do JSON mode. So I have here a JSON that I have created, right? For this collection, this is the name jobs. These are the fields, and for each field we have the type. We also have if it's facet. So facet is like grouping, right? So location, we can group by location, we can group by tags, and that way we can display, okay, there are 10 jobs in this collection, in this location, etc., etc. Company name, this company has these jobs, and then we have all of these other, wherever you see facet is true, that means that it's groupable, okay? And this is active, close, the status, etc., etc. All right, so we have this. We're gonna go ahead and execute this, and now we have the jobs schema, okay? This is kind of how it looks. And so now we can modify it here in the schema, or we can go right here in the collections, click on jobs, and what we can do is we can actually search stuff, right? If we had stuff in there, okay? So we don't have anything there. And so we can click on add document, and right here we can add a document to our collection. And so now here's some JSON that will allow us to create a document for this collection, right? ID, title, description, location. So for the ID, I'm just gonna make it a bunch of digits. Title, description, location, tags, company name, is remote, min, max, status, created at, okay? So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go ahead. So we have this action mode is upsert, right? Which means that if this document doesn't exist, it's gonna insert it. If it does exist, it's going to update it, okay? So we're gonna go ahead and upsert this. All right, so we went ahead and added it, and now we can search. And as you can see, we have these tags already. Everything is populated from our data. So we have this one document that has been created. And so if we go into collections, we can see that we have one document here. This is the document over here, we can see. And so I can type Flutter over here, and it immediately found it, right? One result found in 1 millisecond. So it's very, very fast. But if I type something like assembly, it's not finding it. And so if I go back to Flutter and I type it, it finds it. Okay, so this works, and you can even test it right from the UI, which is pretty cool, right? And so now we can go back to Flutter, and now for the search jobs API endpoints. All right, so we have the get request. This is the URL, collections, jobs, documents, search. We have the headers here, just one header. We have the query parameters that we need to pass to this get. We have the queue, which is going to be a variable. Query by, this is fixed. You can make it a variable as well later on. And then you have the variables, just the queue that you need to pass when you're calling it. So if we go into response and test, we specify queue, let's say Flutter, and we do test API call. This is what we get back. Okay, so we get back exactly one response. And you can see that found is equal to 1, and then hits is all of these hits right here. And as you can see, it works perfectly. So now that it works perfectly as intended, we can create a custom data type for this, especially for like these document that we get back, right? Because we have hits, and then inside hits, we have different stuff. So we want really hits, and then we can parse out this stuff inside hits. So I'm gonna go ahead and copy all of this. I'm gonna go to data types, click here, paste this, and I'm gonna call this Typesense response. Gonna hit create, and it went ahead and created. Now the one that we care about is the hits, because hits is the actual list of the results. Okay, so I'm gonna go back here, and I'm gonna go back here, and response and test, I wanna parse this as a data type, and I wanna select Typesense response. Okay, that's what I want. I'm gonna hit save and just test it out. Everything looks good. And so now we can actually display this data. Let me see what we have over here. Request, which is invalid. It doesn't like this right here. So there's a queue somewhere. Yeah, so request params this queue. So what we can do is we can simply change this. In fact, we don't really care about this. It's just this complaints, but we're never going to be parsing that out. We know what the query is. We know what the user type. So we're going to change it. That's fine. It's not that important. Okay, so now it's not complaining. Everything looks good. And so now we can actually display it here. So we can come over here. We can do a API call, search jobs, and we can specify the queue is widget state, search jobs right here. We still need to get the other stuff, right? So we can come over here and then we get search jobs. We want it as a data type. And then what we want is, we know the data type, right? And now what we need to do is we need to get the data. So I'm going to go for hits and that's it. Now we have the hits. So this is just the record, the results. So search results, result, save this. And now we can display. So let's say we want to display this thing over here, that first one. So search results item, and we can get data structure field. Now we need to go into document always, right? Data structure field. And now we have all of this. So what do we want to display? Title, right? Which I assume is what that is. And that's it. And so now this should have no issues. Everything is fine. Everything looks good. Do we have authentication? Let's go ahead and enable authentication as well. So I'm going to go ahead and add a login page, and I'm going to do auth. Gonna go ahead and do this one. Okay, and I'm gonna just delete this. We'll just do regular email auth. And let's go into auth over here. We'll just turn on authentication. Supabase, login. We still have a couple of errors. No, we don't have any errors. And so now just to test out if it works, what we can do is we can go to this list view, add query, API call, add additional variable, queue. And here I can just type Flutter. Just something, just to get the data out. Confirm, and then come back here and grab this as data type. And we need to make sure we get the hits, because that's the list. That's what we care about. So this is going to give us the list, and the variable name for each item is going to be the search record. And so now here we can just display whatever we want. Data structure, and we need to go into document, data structure field, title. And so now when we run the app, this is what we get when we hard code Flutter in there. Okay, and so if I type something else here, if I go in here and I set something else, so right now it's hard coded to Flutter. If we go into our Typesense dashboard over here, we can see that we have mobile. So if I type something like mobile, it's still gonna find one. So if I hard code mobile, we're gonna find this one result over here. Do that, and I restart my app because it's hard coded. Okay, it still shows this. And so let's pull in some of the other fields. So we have things like company name, we have location and job type. So let's do location and job type right now. So I'm gonna do combine, and this is gonna be our location, and I'm gonna add, I don't know, something like this. Well, maybe we'll fix that later. And I'm going to go ahead, make it easier. I'm just going to copy all this, paste it in there, and now we can just select the field. What do we have? Is remote, location, we have status. So we can just do is remote over here. Okay, and so now if we do that again, we're going to be displaying some extra fields. All right, so remote, true. So the location is remote and is remote is true. That's kind of what we have. This needs to have location. And if we go over here, we don't have, we do have company name. We have company name here. Let's paste this. Company name it was right at the top. Okay, so this is nice. And this one over here, let's see what we can do. We can do something, maybe one of these, this one, I think. Yeah, this one is what I wanted to do. Go ahead and rebuild that. And that is what we have. So we have this, we have this. We can also display the avatar as well. We have this. So that's how it works. So let's go ahead and make this dynamically so that it automatically searches it. Okay, and for that we can simply come over here and we can create a page state variable. So this is going to be Q. It wants, call it query, and it is going to be nullable because initially nothing is set to it, right? So it's going to be nullable. And then once they type something, they hit search, we're going to update it. So we're going to do this, update page state, set value to whatever they type, and rebuild the current page. Okay. And this thing over here, Q is going to be set to page state query. And we need to make sure that this is not displayed, this is not done if it's empty, right? Because if it hasn't been set, because it's not going to be searching for anything. And so what we're going to do is we're going to have a conditional. So that will only be displayed if we actually have that page state variable query is set and not empty. Okay. And so by default, it's going to be null. And then somebody types it, it's going to search. Let's see that. All right. So by default, it is null over here. Now, if I type something, Flutter, it's going to update. It's going to set the page state variable to Flutter, and this is going to automatically rebuild and use that. So if I type mobile, it's going to also find mobile as well. Okay. If I delete that, this goes away. Okay. And if I type mobile, it's going to find it, right? So it's very, very quick, very nice. We can also type like senior as a senior developer, find senior. So as of now, this works really, really well. We still need to do these filters, and we're going to be doing them a little bit later. Look, so I really, really hope that you're enjoying this amazing video tutorial that uses all kinds of amazing tools in ways that brings a lot of value to your users. Now, if you're serious about building apps and you want to build real apps, you know, not soy hobby projects, real apps with real tools that deliver real value to your users, then you definitely need to join our amazing Mastering FlutterFlow community. Mastering FlutterFlow is my flagship course that has a ton of different and easy to follow video modules, and I'm constantly adding new ones. And in fact, just the past week, I added 5 new modules to cover 5 new topics that exist now in FlutterFlow. And so when you join Mastering FlutterFlow, you're going to get lifetime access to our amazing training. And plus, you're also going to get access to our private community where we have some amazing people there. I am there. We have other amazing people there, and they're always ready to help out, you know, with any issue, regardless of whether you have a question about stuff in the course, or you're unsure about something, an app that you're building, you're having issues. We're all there. We're all going to help you out and try to get you to finish building this app. In addition to Mastering FlutterFlow, also check out Mastering Supabase and Mastering BuildShip, which are my other 2 flagship trainings that cover different tools. Mastering Supabase is about, you know, this amazing backend that I use pretty much in all my apps. And Mastering BuildShip is an amazing tool that lets you create automations, two-way syncs, and all kinds of interesting things by providing your app with an intelligent backend, not to mention AI, and a ton of other features. So definitely have a look at Mastering FlutterFlow, Mastering Supabase, and Mastering BuildShip if you're serious about building all kinds of amazing no-code apps. And you can see those products via the links in the description below the video. Now, the next thing that we need to do is we need a way to sync the Supabase stuff into Typesense. And it needs to be a real-time sync. So anytime something gets modified in Supabase, deleted, updated, added in Supabase, it needs to be done automatically in Typesense, right? So Supabase is the source of truth, but we are going to be searching Typesense. So that's what we're going to be interfacing with. And there's lots of ways of doing it. You can use things like BuildShip, N8N, etc., etc. But what I'm going to be using is just the easiest way, and that is Supabase Edge functions. Because we can use a Supabase function that automatically does all the logic in Typesense, right? Whenever the data, the underlying data in Supabase changes, okay? So if you click, if you go to your project dashboard, you click on Edge Functions. Here you can either do it via the editor, the AI assistant, or the CLI. I'm just going to open the editor. And I already have created this function. I actually use ChatGPT to create it for me. And here it's very important that you make sure the port is 8108, protocol is HTTP. these host and API key are going to be gotten from the environment. So you can get all of them from the environment if you want. And so that is what we have. And I'm going to call this Typesense sync. Okay. Next, I'm going to go ahead and deploy this function. So this function is now deployed and you can click here and access it, but we still need to create the environmental variables, right? So we have Typesense host and we also have Typesense API key. So the host is this IP address here. Paste that in there, and we want to make sure that it is just the IP address. And the API key is XYZ. Okay. We hit save, and that's going to save it. And now it's part of the environment that the edge function can look up. So we have that there. And if we go into functions, we click over here, we have all of the information about the functions. We can invoke it. We have all of this. We have the details. And here you can actually invoke it. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and copy this. And I'm going to go ahead and paste it over here. File, import, text using Rapid API. I'm just going to paste it here. We're going to import it. And for the body, I'm going to be using this, which is an insert event. All of this. I'm going to take that. Come back here and go to the body, paste it in there. And so now we have the post URL. We have the headers, including the authorization key and all of that. We have the body. And the idea is to create a new document. So let's go ahead and change it. So the ID, I'm just going to make it 003. I'm just going to say test job 25. This is Supabase Inc. Is remote is true, paying 150 to 170K. That's it. So now I'm going to go ahead and invoke it. Okay, we're going to invoke it as it would be invoked by our Supabase trigger that we're going to do a little bit later. So now you see success is true. And this is a response directly from Typesense. So if I'm going to go into Typesense now, and I go into my dashboard and I go into my collections, I should have 3 documents because I had 2 documents before, and now we had a 3rd one. So if I click here, we can search. Okay, so as you can see, we have Supabase Inc., etc., etc. So if I type Supabase, I'm going to have one result, which is that newly added document over here, okay, that we created manually via invoking it. Now, this function by itself is not going to get executed unless you do it manually, which kind of defeats the purpose. To have it run automatically, we need to create a trigger. So if you go into database, you click on triggers over here, you can create a trigger visually. And so we're going to say all of these, we're going to do after the event. And here we need to select a function to trigger the edge function. Okay, and we don't have any of that. And so fortunately, what I did was I created a trigger that we can set up manually. And so I can go to SQL editor. I can simply create a new snippet over here. And here we have a trigger that will do everything that needs to be done. Here we need the project ID, and you can get the project ID inside the URL. It's going to be after project, right? You can just copy that right here and you have the project ID. Just double check everything. This is our function over here. It's building the request, building the object here, doing all of this. And then it's creating this, this trigger over here that will trigger this function that it is created. So we're going to go ahead and execute this. Okay, success, no rows returned. And so now if we go into database, we go into triggers, we should have this trigger over here. Okay, so it is here. That is the name of this trigger. It's calling this function. And that's not an edge function. That's a Supabase function. And this Supabase function, in turn, calls the edge function. Okay, that's what we have. And you can edit this right here. Not much you can do. Okay, you can also edit it with Assistant if you want, and that will do a little bit more. Or you can also delete it. Okay, so this trigger is active. It's enabled, which means that anytime we change data, it will automatically do the same thing in our Typesense. All right, so I went ahead and deleted everything in the jobs collection here in Typesense so that we can start from scratch. And now if we go to our Supabase and let's say you create a new record over here, it's going to automatically create it in Typesense. And so if I select this over here and I select the company, and let's say title, James, no code. Title, description, location. Let's say we put some tags, true and active. Okay, and if I hit save, it should automatically create the record in Typesense as well. Here we go, and it has created it here. And if we go into Typesense and we refresh that, you see now we have a record here. Okay, FlutterFlow is a tag, and this is the record right here. Now, the same thing should happen if we happen to update it, right? So if I select this and I edit my row, and let's say change the title to FlutterFlow Developer, okay? And I hit save. It should automatically change it everywhere. It changed it here. And if we go into Typesense, it should automatically change it, okay? As you can see, it says FlutterFlow Developer. And the same should happen if we delete it. So if I go back here and I hit this and I want to delete it, it should automatically delete it there as well. And if I go back to Typesense, it has been deleted here as well. And obviously this doesn't affect these records because these records were created before we had the sync, but the new records are automatically, they're automatically going to be synced with Typesense, and it's a one-way sync. Okay, it's only syncing stuff from here. It's not going to sync stuff from Typesense, okay? We don't really need that because this is the source of truth, okay? So let's go ahead and create a new record that we just want to keep there. So I do this, Acme, title, Acme, FlutterFlow developer, FlutterFlow, salary, 150,000, 200,000, true, active. I'm going to go ahead and do that. That has created it here. We see it here. And if we go into Typesense, we should see it there as well. Okay, so this is this new record that was created. And one thing is that we're also pulling the Acme name, right? So when we create the record, we have an ID. But in my trigger, I did a join. And so if we take a look at our trigger over here, this is the trigger. I'm basically joining. I'm getting the company name here. And then I'm inserting it here, and that way we get all the data, because if you save it directly, you're going to be saving the ID, but in Typesense, we want the name of the company. And so if you have a situation where you have an ID anywhere, you want to pull up the actual name before you send it to your Typesense, okay? So this now works, and we can continue building the app. Now, the next thing that I want to work on is this filtering here, okay? Now, for simplicity's sake, we're just going to keep location and job type. So I'm going to delete category. And we do have the fields, right? We have both location, and for job type, I'm just going to assume it's remote. Is remote, if it's not remote, if it is remote. And so what we're going to do here is when the app runs, we're going to display the locations of the outputs, right, of the results there, okay? And the user can select and see which ones they want, and then it's going to filter it, okay? So the first thing that we need to do is we need to select the values. And this is fairly simple, because if you recall, if you run this here, you get these locations, right? You get this location, and we can automatically extract the list of these locations from the list or from the results that we get using JSON paths. And so what we can do is we can click here, and now we need the list of strings. Now the issue here is that this API call is done afterwards, okay? And so what we need to do is we need to execute it beforehand, this API call, so we can also capture the values here, okay? So one idea is to copy it and do it beforehand. So we can do it all the way up here. We can just paste it in here, and that way the data is going to be available everywhere. Of course, we're still only going to be using it here, displaying the data here, right, by executing this as a data type, data structure field, hits, all of that, search records. Okay, so all of this is still here. We just need the data to be available here. And so if we go into location, we can define options. And now we have access to this. So I'm going to select this. And I don't want to do it as data type. I want to do it as JSON body. And then we can do a not predefined JSON path. And then we can simply use a JSON path just to get the locations. So what we can do is we can use something like this. And that's going to give us all the records, get the document for each of these records, and just get the locations. And that's going to give us what we want. Okay, so we're going to do that. And same thing here for the job type. Here we can simply do this, is remote. Okay, now let's go ahead and run the app. Now, when we run it, we are getting an error, and that is because we haven't executed the search just yet. So we need to make sure that this is not done here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click here. I'm going to copy it, and I'm going to do a conditional value. And if this is that page state is set, is set and non-empty, then go ahead and do it. Otherwise, nothing, right? Otherwise, then we can simply reply with an empty array. Okay, and we are going to be doing the exact same thing here. So I'm going to copy this, and now this is going to be is remote, otherwise an empty array. Okay, let's go ahead and run this. So now, as you can see, this is empty. There's nothing there, so you can't really select it. But if we type something like, let's say Flutter, now this right here works, but this one says true because it is remote. So for this case, we should just have two options, right? It's not, it's not the right situation as this one, right? It's not the same flow as you have with this one. So we should just have it just a remote, right? Because this is remote right here. And so this over here is actually remote. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to put it as to remote. Okay. In fact, what we can do is we can just make it simple. We can do remote and delete this. Okay. Just to keep things very, very simple. Rebuild the app. All right. So it's not set, but this is set because it's hard coded. And if I put Flutter, we have here New York, which is where this is from, and this is still remote, not remote. And so now we have this. And the next thing that we need to do is we need to create a filter, because if there's going to be multiple of these, one is going to be New York, another one is going to be something else. So as an example, let's go ahead and create another one. And I'm going to put location as to something else so that you can see how this works. So let's do company ID also something else, not Acme. Let's do global logistics, and let's do global logistics dev location. I'm going to put Miami. Okay, tags, FlutterFlow. Let's put 50,000. Is remote? No. And then this is active. All right. And so this should have been created. So if you go to our Typesense dashboard, we go to collections, and now it's 2. So if we go over here, you can see that we have 2 records. We have this one and we have this one, right? You see the records right here. And so now you see that Miami and New York. Okay, so now if we go back to our app and we restart it, and you search for something like Flutter, which should match both records, it's going to allow us to have that nice filtering functionality. Okay, so now if I search for Flutter, okay, so it's still New York. I guess this one does not have Flutter, is it? Yeah, it's let's see, Acme FlutterFlow developer. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna modify this, and I'm gonna say, okay, so now if we go back here, FlutterFlow dev, and so now I can search for it. Flutter. Okay, and so now as you can see, we're seeing 2 of them, and then you go into location, you see it shows both of these locations automatically. This is remote, non-remote, which kind of makes sense. This is not remote, and we need to make sure that we actually say that this is not remote. We have some overflow by 10 pixels. We need to fix that. I'm going to go ahead and fix that real quick. All right, so now this looks a little bit better. It's no longer overflowing. Looks really good. The next thing that we need to do is we need to create the filtering. So we have Miami and we have New York. If I select Miami, I want it to be filtered here. If I select New York, I want it to be filtered there. Now, filtering is done by adding your to the URL of the search over here, right? You add a bunch of things here. So you would add something like this and you would have this filter by location, and you would specify the location. So for instance, if I put New York like this, that will only do New York. So if I do this, save that, execute that, that will only give me New York. You see, there's now only one result. Now, if I change that to Miami and we execute that, that will give me 1 in Miami, as you can see right here. So that's how you do filtering. Now, this filtering over here, it needs to be built by us, right? Because initially we might not even need filtering, right? And so what we need to do is we need to do that. We need to delete that, and we need to put the filter over here. And so I'm going to go to my query parameters, and I'm going to add a filter. Filter over here. This is from a variable. We're going to go ahead and create a new variable here called filter. Okay. And if we go over here, we have this new variable. We're going to specify it's a string, and we are good, right? So this now is going to be dynamic. Okay. So if we go over here, we can specify a filter, and I can specify this, which is the whole filter, right? And if we execute this, everything is good, right? So if we do that, if I remove that, then we don't have any filtering, right? So it works really, really nicely. And so what we need to do here is we also need to create another page state variable, and this is going to be a string, and this is going to be nullable, right? So when it's nullable, it's empty, essentially. It doesn't do anything. And so now what we need to do is we need a way to generate the filter from the values that we have here. And so this thing over here, when we're searching, right? So if I go over here, we need to be passing a filter, right? So I'm going to have a filter, and initially it's going to be set to page state filter. And so filter, if it's null, that's okay because it's empty. There's nothing there, and there's really nothing to pass. But anytime, anytime the user presses here, we need to modify the filter just like how we take into account the search string here. So we're gonna go over here, and what we need to do is we need to not only update the query, but we also need to update the filter based on what the user has submitted, right? And so for that, we need to set the value, and this is where we're gonna be building the filter. And so what we need to do is we need a custom function to build out this filter for us, right? So we're going to say create a new custom function, and the returning is a string, not nullable, and the arguments is just going to be the location and this is going to be nullable because it can be empty, and remote. And this is also going to be nullable. And so what we need to do here is we need to return something like this, okay? Just something like this, okay? And that is if we have location and remote. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to just code it real quick. And so this is going to be our string. This is our return. And so then we can say if location, what we want to do is we want to add it to location. So what we want is red equals to filter equals to location equals to, and then we add the location. This is this location over here. And then we also need if remote, we want to append, and then we want to return this. So that's our kind of pseudocode. And this right here is the complete code. And so we can also test it out. So I'm going to go ahead and save it. And we're going to pass our location over here. This is the first drop down. This is the second drop down. And that's going to generate our filter for us. Okay. And we can even test it out, which is a good idea. So let's call it get filter. Okay. And so we can even test it. So let's say the location is New York and remote is, and that should generate the filter for us. And so this is the filtering that we get back. And so if we test it out, we can see if that's what it expects. Let's see if that works. Now, if we use this filter here, it should tell us if it works or not. Okay, that looks like it's getting us one of them. If we do Miami, now it's 0 because Miami is also not remote. If we do Miami is false, now it's showing Miami. Okay, so this filter is working, and we need to add filter, save this, looks good. We can also compile it, restart the app. All right, so we have this, and now if you select this, you see how it switches it. So if you type Flutter and you have that, you can select New York, and that's switches it back to New York. And so that works as intended. Now there's a small issue here that when you select New York, you can no longer unselect it. You can't clear it. And so we need a way to do that. And that's actually really, really easy. Just duplicate this and create a little button. In fact, we can just do an icon. Just come over here, do button, icon button. Put it over here, and then what we're gonna do is we're gonna make it something like maybe X, a red X, and that should do it. And what that's gonna do is that's going to delete all of these things that have been set. It's gonna delete the filters. Okay, and so if you go over here and we open this, copy this, we're gonna delete the filters here. And so the query is the same. It's just this is reset the value. That's what we need to do. Let's go ahead and see if that works. All right, so now if I type Flutter, I get my data, and if I select Miami, I get Miami. But if I clear that, you see I get everything back. It basically removes this. Okay, so if I select New York, I get New York, and that clears it. Okay, and so that's a quick thing. Another thing that we can do is we can also clear this as well. Maybe it's a good idea. Let's go ahead and do that. Set value to empty query. Just reset this, and we can also reset this. So clear text field. Text this. All right, so let's say I try Flutter. I get my data, and I do this. I'm back. Okay, so that's not a bad approach. I get this, I search this, now it's that, clear that, and it clears everything. So that's not a bad thing. That's a nice little approach to fix that issue. Now, the next thing that I want to work on is the detail page. Okay, that's going to be looking something like this. So let's go ahead and do it. I'm going to go ahead, create a new page, job detail. Go ahead and create it. So here's our job detail, and let's go ahead and get the UI elements. So we have maybe on the side of a card, and we can have a row that we can put stuff inside, company name, location 3 days ago, and then we have a bunch of other things, description. I'm gonna make another card, and then 2 texts, and I'm gonna go ahead and fix it up. So there's a lot of things happening. Let's do a padding. Let's go ahead and make this nice and big. Make this a little bit semi-bold. Let's do this padding too. And we have this. This needs to be centered, and it could be spaced out like this. And let's do this. Card has padding. Column. Let's do column padding inside. Make it something like this. Okay, that looks a little bit better. And we need a button. Apply now. And where do we want the button? Well, the button is here, so let's make it there. Make this card right above the card. Okay, fact. Right here. Bring this back, and then we have this. Gonna go ahead and do the padding, and we're gonna say apply now, and let's make it a little bit bigger. Okay, so now it's a nice card. I really like this kind of card layout. The only thing I don't like is there's just too much padding on the top. Something like this is perfect. So company name, location, that's all nice. Now let's go ahead and work on this card right here, and what I'm gonna do is we have this. All right, and so this is gonna say, let's do the padding. Let's go ahead and do description, requirements, responsibilities. So this is gonna be a little bit this is gonna say description. We're gonna do padding. I think 20 is probably too much. 15 is nice. Let's make this description. Let's go ahead and left align all of this. Let's get this padding. Is it 15? Yeah, 15 is good. And I want it to be expandable, right? And for that to do it, we need to wrap it in a row, right? So I'm gonna wrap it in a row, and then we can expand the row, and then we can make it expandable like this. We want the column to be left. We want this to not, it doesn't need the padding anymore. Well, it needs the bottom padding. And then this is gonna say description, and then there's the text. And we want this text to also be expanded. We want it to be, I'm gonna wrap this in a row so that it expands on the row level. Yeah, I mean, this is fine. This doesn't need inside a row because we don't need that. And so now what I can do is I can duplicate it. Requirements, responsibilities, and duplicate it as much as I want. And that's kind of starting to look good. Okay, that is starting to look much better. Job title. Okay, so that is starting to look much better. And we'll fix it up a little bit, but a lot of the text is going to be here, right? This is where the bulk of the text is going to be. So we want to make sure that this card over here, it expands as it needs to expand. So this row over here, we want it to be expandable like this. And this row also we want it to expand. And then this row, we want it to expand. Okay, so now it's all expandable. And so now if you take a look at this column, it's perfect. It has this padding, which is probably too much. 15, I think, is going to be better. So looks pretty good to me. Looks starting to come very clean. I would also want to do maybe more padding here. No, 20 is too much. I do want to have, maybe this button should have a little bit more padding, 10. Okay, that looks pretty clean. I think it looks pretty clean. Let me know in the comments what you guys think. Now, we need to get a lot of this info here. And the way that we're going to be getting this info is we're going to be using GraphQL. We're not going to be making a separate kind of view for all this, right? Because now we have a job. And so if you go to our jobs, we have a company. So now we need a view because this is a relationship. And so to make things more interesting, I'm going to be using GraphQL, which I really, really like, okay? And so we're going to head over to our database here. We're going to go into integrations, and we want to make sure that GraphQL is enabled, installed. So as you can see, it's right here, which means that we can click on GraphQL, and we can start kind of messing with the data, right? So this is what we have. So we have, so what that means is that we can say, let's say jobs collection, we can get location, and we can delete all that. And now if we execute it, we get all the stuff, we get all the locations. Now, right now, when we run it, we get this company ID. But if you want to get the actual company name, you just do companies, And then inside you type what you want, the name, ID, very easy. And look at this, we get automatically, we get the name, we get all of this. We don't need to do views or joins or any of that. And so this becomes a query. And so now I'm going to go ahead, create another API call. And with GraphQL, you only need one API endpoint. Okay, and here's my stuff here. This is my endpoint here. I'm gonna put that there. This is post. We're gonna do post, and I'm just gonna call it GraphQL. Okay, and then we need a bunch of other things. We need our headers. We need this API key that I'm gonna get in a second. And we have this. And then the query, right? We have the query, and you wanna do it so that it's on one line. So something like this. I'm gonna go ahead and add this call. Here's our call, and then we go over here, and this is our JSON. And this right here is our query, and it needs to be like this. And I'm gonna go ahead and do this. Format it, no problems. And that's our query right there, right? This is the name of the query, this is the collection, all of that. And we can double check if it is correct by going into our GraphQL dashboard playground inside of Supabase, as I showed you. Okay, so we still need these keys. So I'm gonna go back here, project settings, API keys, copy this, paste that there, save. Let's go ahead and see if this works. So this is a known field company, untyped jobs. Okay, so we have an issue somewhere, and let me go ahead and check what the issue is. So if we go back over here, integrations, GraphQL, graph this, jobs collection. So this works. Okay, this over here works. And let me double check. Jobs collection, edges, node, ID, location, company, ID name. Companies. That was the issue. Save that. Re-execute, and now you're getting the data beautifully. No need for views, and it's very, very fast. It's super awesome. And we can even save it as a request if you want, or we can simply do JSONs. In fact, why don't we just do JSON paths? What do we care about? Well, the job title, are we getting the title? We are just getting ID, location. So we need the title, company name, we're gonna get that. We need created at title, and we need description. Do we have all of these fields? Jobs, description, we do. We also have tags we don't need. Is remote is another one. We might want that. Let's do that. So description and is remote. Title, company's description is remote. Okay, let's save that. Come over here, test this. We got everything. Okay, look at that, created that. We got this nicely formatted date. We are good to go. So now let's capture what we need. Well, we need the title, so we're gonna save that. We need the company name right here. We need location, there's location. We need created that, and then we need description. Okay, we can simply save all that. Okay, and so let me go ahead and say titles, comp, any name, locations, created that, just make it singular. Okay, it's all there. And so now we can even filter this, right? There's even filtering. And so if you come over here, you can add a filter, right? So now we have a filter where ID is 3. So I can say where ID is 1. So if you take a look at our IDs, we have these IDs over here. And so I can say where ID is 1. Let me go ahead and double check this, save that, and then you can run it, and you're gonna get hopefully one result. I'll escape that like this. Format works, save it, and then when you run it, you're gonna get just one result right here. So filtering is really nice. And so you can pass this whole thing as an argument, right? If you're gonna be doing lots of things, but right now we're just doing it in a couple of times. So I'm just gonna hard code it, but I am gonna get a variable. I'm just gonna get an ID variable. In fact, I'm gonna say job ID. Job ID is gonna be doesn't really matter, integer. And now what we can do is we can go into body and we can put that in there, something like this. And so now if I come over here and I say job ID is 1, that's gonna go ahead and insert it, and we have that. If I say job ID is 2, that's gonna get me job ID 2. Really nice, so very awesome. I really like GraphQL. All right, so we are done with this call, and now what we can do is we can have this page detail accept a parameter. And I'm gonna say job ID, and I'm just gonna say it's a string or an integer. I think, yeah, we have it as an integer. I think integer is gonna work better because integer is what we're storing it as in our database. So job ID is an integer, and then at the top level, we can simply run this query. API call, GraphQL, job ID is this job ID. And now we have what we need to have. And so I'm gonna go back here to home, put this in there. And if you click on this container or this card actually, you're gonna do a navigation. We're gonna navigate to job detail, and we're gonna pass this job ID right here, data structure field, document, data structure field. Do we have ID? Okay, so now this is gonna be a string now, just to keep things simple, and then we'll parse it. All right, and now we need to make sure that we have this API call set up. So this expects a string now, and so now we need to delete that, and we can't use this because now this expects an integer, this GraphQL. And so let's go ahead and make it a string over here, and we're gonna make it a string. Should be no issues right there. And okay, so it's fine. All right, and so now we have this call set up. All right, so this is what we have. And now if I click on this, look at this. It works, right? It's displaying the stuff. Yeah, we have some issues with the date. We have some spacing, but at least it works, right? GraphQL works, okay? So now let me go ahead and fix this up. Let's go ahead and fix this. So we need to format this, and it needs to be lower. Font size needs to be smaller. Let's go ahead and fix this. There's a lot of padding. Yeah, that's the problem. That's a little bit better, and maybe even 13. Okay, maybe something like this. We'll fix that. This needs to have a space. In fact, yeah, so let's see if that works. Yeah, it's still, the spacing is a little messed up. Okay, so let's go ahead and fix the spacing. It's gonna be hard because if the company name is long, it's just gonna take over this whole thing. What we can do is we can limit it, right? We can say max characters, I don't know, 20, and we can do an ellipsis. Location is gonna be probably okay. And this needs to be, it needs to be parsed, okay? And so what we need to do is we need to come over here, we need to copy it, come back here, inline function, and what we need to do is paste this. That's a string right now, but it shouldn't be a string. And so, actually, yeah, this is not even gonna work as well because we wanted to parse it as a date, right? So we wanna be able to do it. And so one way to do it is by using a custom function. So I'm gonna go ahead and create a custom function. I'm gonna call it, we're gonna be returning a date time and taking in a string. Just gonna call it date1, not null. And so let's go ahead and get Copilot, parse a date that looks like, all right, so if you run this, and let's say we also have created that, well, we need to parse this into a date time. So I'm gonna get AI to do it, parse a date that looks like into date time, and then we can handle it within FlutterFlow. Okay, very simple, just date time parse. We're gonna copy this, and that should hopefully do it. Okay, and so now we're gonna pass this right here, and that's gonna give us back a date, and now we can format it any way that we want. So we can say relative a moment ago, abbreviate it even, you know, maybe something like this. Okay, so that's gonna save us some space. Click here and see 3 hours ago. Perfect, like just like this 3 days ago. So that right there is kind of what we have. I mean, we can make it a little bit longer, but I think that's fine. Maybe increase the size of this text. It's probably a little too small. Let's bring it back to 14. Maybe a little bit more. I have 20, 23 or something. Maybe that's going to be a little better. Okay, so a little bit better. 3 hours ago, we have this. Let's do description. I'm just gonna copy this. This is gonna be the description, and this is description. And that's it. So this is gonna be requirements. I don't think we have any requirements. Maybe as an exercise for later. Responsibilities. Let's go ahead and restart this. All right, so something like this. Look at that. We have description. These descriptions are gonna be later. All right, so this works really, really nice, and we did not need to create any views. Next, let's go ahead and work on the apply now flow. Okay, so the idea is, when you apply, it's going to create a record here in this applications table. And that means it's going to record the job ID, your logged in user ID. You'll have to enter your cover letter, the resume URL, and the status is going to be automatically set to whatever, pending, reviewing, and either accepted, interviewing, accepted, rejected. Okay? And so when they click on it, we're going to have a pop-up where they can enter their stuff, and then they hit submit. And that's going to go into the queue. Okay, so let's go ahead and create a, which is gonna be a pop-up. So this is the submit, and here we're gonna do a column, add all the stuff. And I really like maybe something like this. So I'm gonna copy this and I'm gonna paste it in here, wrap it like this. That's fine. There's this column. So that's nice. And let's go ahead and change this. So I'm gonna say apply for this job. And now we're gonna have a form. Right, so we have this bigger, maybe 30, and then we can simply create the form. So what do we need to, we need the cover letter and the resume URL, and that's it. So very nice. This is what hint text cover letter, and this is the resume URL. And I also want to do, I want to do a border color. Oh, this, that, yeah, that looks much better. And I also want to make it so that it is a little bit max lines. So let's do 3. And this resume URL is just going to be one line. And I also want a border color. And that's it. And then they're going to hit apply. And here we can just use regular Supabase, right? Insert row, applications. This is the job ID. Well, we have to get it somewhere. We need to pass it as a parameter. This we have access to. This is auth user ID. Cover letter is this. Widget state, cover letter, and this is the resume URL. Okay, and the status is pending. So we need to have a component parameter, and we need the job ID, and we need to make sure, preferably as an integer, because this is an integer, right? This applications is an integer, so it needs, this job ID is an integer here, so preferably would be nice, but we can always convert it. So I'm going to say job ID an integer. And now if we go into this job detail, this thing is going to open it up, and we're going to say dialog. Keep forgetting it's not confirm. I keep forgetting the names of these dialogues. Bottom sheet, that's what it's called. Submit flow, and let's see if we can pass our job ID. So this job ID is obviously text, but we can always parse it. So we're gonna do inline function, and we're taking it as an integer, and here's where we're gonna be returning it as string into an integer. And so we're gonna say this var1 parse int. I think that's how you do it. Is it? I think it's int parse, maybe. I think it's something like this. Yeah, that should do it. So that converts it into an integer. Invalid value. We didn't specify a job ID. So that has it. And now that's gonna open the flow. And then on this right here, we're gonna save all that. And we want it to close. Well, here we're going to pass this job ID because now it's an integer. This parameter is an integer, and we're able to set it correctly. User ID we have, cover letter we have, resume we have, status we have. So we have everything. Now we just need to close it. Bottom sheet. Dismiss. Okay, and that's it. And now we have successfully applied for the job. A couple of things that we need to do. When we open this, we need to make sure that we have this background color. It needs to be, and yes, and we also need to set the height, because otherwise it's just gonna take up as much as we give it. So I think like 350 would be good. Let's go ahead and refresh this. I'm searching for Flutter. We have our Flutter. We have this. I'm gonna say apply now. Now this comes up, and that looks pretty nice. So cover letter, my cover letter, maybe give the spacing, give a little bit of spacing, some random. So now we've applied, we come back over here, applications, and now we see this, my cover letter, this pending. We have the job ID, which was this job 29, this job right here, this Acme FlutterFlow developer. And then on the dashboard, we can display all that because we can simply have a GraphQL query that lists all the applications and how many people, all the jobs and how many people applied for them, stuff like that. All right, now the next thing that I want to work on is this My Profile page that will list some information about the logged in user along with the saved jobs as well. And we're going to be using GraphQL to fetch all of this data to make it a lot easier. So let's go ahead and create this page. We can simply use one of the built-in pages just to save some time. So let's take a look. So let's just use this page right here. And because it's a profile page, we need to create a nav bar. So we're going to turn on the navbar, and we want it on the profile page and on the home page, and that's it, just the home page on the profile page, and that looks good. And so this is our profile page. And before we fill in the information, we need to execute a query to get what we need. And so if we go into Supabase right here, and we go into integrations, and we go into GraphQL, in this GraphQL, we can experiment and try to get the right query to get everything that we need. And so we need the profile information, okay? And we also need to get the saved jobs. And so what is the profile information? Well, the profile information is going to be stored in this user's extension, okay? So we have this user's extension over here. And we can simply fetch it by the user ID. So that's going to be an argument that we're going to be passing, okay? And then we can pass all the applications that this user ID had applied for, so that we can display them, right? Because these are the jobs that the logged in user is essentially applying for. So we're gonna go back here, and what do we want? Well, we want to start with the profile, right? We want to start with the profile here. So we're going to do users extension. And what do we want to get in the users extension? Well, let's see what we can get. We want to get as much as we can. Full name, role, avatar URL, lots of things, right? So we're going to go back here, ID, full name, avatar URL. So we have this. I'm going to go ahead and delete that. So if we execute that, this is what we get, but we need to make sure it's a filter set, right? So we're going to be doing filtering. You can just type filter, and we're going to do this filter right here. So this is kind of how it's going to be. Go ahead and clean it up a little bit. And so we're going to be filtering this field here, this user ID field, okay? So we're going to go back here. So it's not ID, user ID. And here we need to put the user ID. So I'm just going to hard code it just to see this one. Copy this one, paste that in there. And so this query right here gets us the first half, the top half of the page. But we can also get these applications here as well by doing this, using this application collection, edges, node, and then we can get the data that we want having to do with the job. And so what kind of information do we want with the job? Well, you know, things like the title, description, stuff like that. And so I'm going to go in here, I'm going to go into jobs, and now I can get the title, description, stuff like that. And if we execute that, you can see what's happening, right? So you see James right here, this filter, and then we have these applications and the jobs, and you see how many levels that we have to jump through. And if you go back here, you can see that, well, this is the user extension. If you go into applications, you can see exactly what's happening. You can see, well, you know, there's me. Which one is me? I am 0BC, right? So 1, 2, 3, right? I applied for 3 jobs. And that's exactly what you're seeing here, right? So how cool is that? How awesome is that? So you're getting all this data that you need. You have this data for the top half, and then you have this data for the other things. And now we can simply copy this, and we can simply use it in our app. So if we go back here, we can execute it as a parameter right over here. But because we're using it here, I'm going to go ahead and create another call. And so what we can do is we can go ahead and we can just duplicate this, right? Now, like I said, you don't need to do that. You can have it all as one call. You can simply use a variable for the whole query, okay? But I'm just showing you another way. So you can do profile GraphQL, just come over here, and then you want to replace it over here. Okay, and so we can simply paste this over here and escape this. And this will need to be sent via a variable over here, right? So we can save that. So now we have a variable, and we can change that to the user ID. So this is a string, come over here, and this is going to be this user ID right here. Okay, and that's it. So we have the user ID. Let's go ahead and test this out. So user ID is this one right here. That's me. And there it is. That's the user information. These are all the applications along with the jobs, right? How cool is that? Really, really nice. Really awesome. And we can simply display this user information here and everything else here. So let me go ahead and fetch what we need to fetch. So I'm going to fetch this one. This is our avatar URL, ID. I'm going to fetch this. I'm going to delete the other things because remember, we duplicated it. So we have a bunch of JSON paths that are no longer valid. And so I'm going to say display name. I'm going to say, what is this? Avatar URL. And this is user type. And now we can get the other things, right? So what do we need? We need extension, application, jobs. This is what we need. So we need this, this, and this. In fact, we need title and description. So this is job titles and job descriptions. And we have all the data. How cool is that? Absolutely amazing. And so now let's come over here. And in fact, let's go in home and let's go ahead and copy this whole container. Copy this whole card over here. Copy this, go into profile, and we can have a list. We probably don't need any of this. Just simplify things. And I'm gonna do a list view button after the list view. And I'm gonna go ahead and expand it. And the button should not be like that. Okay, here we can paste in a column. Where did okay, so I have this card, gonna paste it under it. Perfect. Okay, that looks good. And so this right here is so we're gonna execute it at the top level. We're gonna go ahead and execute this backend query, Supabase query, API call. We're gonna do this user ID. There we have that. And well, we need to get the list view. What we want is we just want the list of the application collection edges. Edges node, jobs. Yeah, we want this list over here because this is jobs. Yeah, so I'm just gonna save this as jobs and that's gonna be fine. I think that should work. List view, and then we can come over here and say predefined path jobs, something like that. And we can say job item. And now we have all of this here. And now we can just display. Okay, so here we have the job item. We're gonna do a JSON path and we're just gonna pull up the, let's take a look. So we're getting these edges. We're gonna say node jobs title, right? Because this is the top level array. So we want node jobs title. Okay, see if that works. Okay, this is the title. I'm gonna go ahead and remove this just to see if we have it set up correctly. I'm gonna remove this. And we also want to display, this is our display name. Do we have email? We don't have email here. Let's see if we can get just the email in the authenticated user email. Okay, so that has it. Let's go ahead and run it. We still have one issue. We don't need that anymore because this card had, yeah, we don't need that at all. Navigate back. Okay. In fact, I don't think we even need this. Okay, so when we run it, we are getting errors here, especially these ones. So we're not pulling in the right data. Let's double check what we have. Now we are seeing jobs over here, and this is what it is. So it looks good. This is exactly what it should be. Okay, this is exactly correct. This is exactly what we want. And so let's go ahead and see if we're pulling it correctly, right? So it's an array of these records, and we still need to pull jobs. Let's go ahead and see. We're using node. I don't think we need node anymore because this is just jobs. I don't think we need that. I think this should do it. Let's go ahead and rerun that. Okay, so now it works. It works perfectly. All right, so now we can do this one as well. And what do we have there? In the home, we have, what is this supposed to be? Company name. So let's do the same thing. Company name, profile. I'll do company name here. And I don't actually think we're pulling it. Let me double check. We just have description. So we just need to pull company name. So if we type company name here, company name, company's name. How cool is that? I can immediately get what I want. Okay, now we get name. So that's what we want. So we want companies and the name. So let's go ahead and modify the query here, body. And so right here, we want companies. I think that should do it. If we execute it, we're getting it. Companies and name. How cool is that? I really like GraphQL. So if we go back here, we can simply copy this because we're going to be building on top of it and paste that. And now we can say title, companies, name. I think that should do it. Or no. Let me double check if that's the right path. Jobs, yeah, it is right. Yeah. See, jobs, companies.name. Yep, that's gonna do it. All right, paste it in there. Jobs, companies name. Awesome. And this right here is, I think we can just delete that. I don't think it's needed. Let's see what's going on. We have this container. Let's make the height. Okay. Yeah, that's fine. All right. And so now if we rerun it, and there it is. There it is. Need a little bit of formatting. That's fine. You see this column. Yeah, that looks better. And that's it. So the other thing that we can do is we can do delete, right? So I think one of the ideas was we can delete the save job. Okay, so let's just do that. I'm gonna go ahead. I have this container. We have a bunch of rows, and I'm gonna go ahead and duplicate this. And then this last column, I'm just gonna have nothing. I'm just gonna have an icon button, something like that. And in fact, I'm gonna go ahead and give it a little bit of padding. And this thing is gonna be to delete it. Let's make it a little bit, I don't know, something like this. And let's do delete, something like this. You can make it even bigger if you want. I don't know, something like that. And if they click on it, we can just delete it from our from the applications table, where, you know, this job ID is here. We have the job ID. Well, we will at least, where we have the user ID and the job ID, right? So we're gonna come over here, and what we wanna get is we also want to get the application node jobs. We wanna get application ID. We wanna have this here. And so that way we get the ID, and that way we can just simply remove the ID from the table, right? And we don't need GraphQL for that. And so if we go back here, now if we execute this, we're gonna get the ID. You see this ID right here, and that's the user ID. We need to send it, right? So it's going to be here, ID full name. How do we have it here? We have it node ID and then jobs, right? So node ID and then jobs, because jobs is the lookup. Okay, so now we have this ID and we can fetch it. Node ID, node applications, application. Yeah, I think that's what we need. We're gonna add this path, and this is the application ID. Right, so in fact, what I'm gonna do is I just want to duplicate it just to show you. And let's say, well, no, I just want to duplicate it here. And so here I'm just gonna display the ID just to show you that it's there. Okay, and so if you run this, you can come over here and we see the ID. Okay, 146, exactly what it's supposed to be. So we are getting the right thing. We have a little bit of an overflow issue, and I'm gonna go ahead and fix that. I'm gonna go ahead and make this expanded, and I'm going to, I think that should be enough. Row. Actually, I'm gonna delete this and I'm gonna make this expanded. Okay, that should fix it. Let's see. Okay, now that looks much better. And so all we need to do is just to delete that ID. And so here, add an action, delete, Supabase delete rows, applications, matching rows, filter, where ID is equal to JSON path ID. That's it. That's pretty much it. And it should automatically reflect it. All right, and so if I click here, it doesn't automatically delete it, but it's not gonna be here. And so one thing that is a good idea, because we're using GraphQL, we're not using page state, you wanna just use navigation. You just wanna navigate to profile, and you wanna do it as an instant. No back navigation, just like that. We have any errors? No errors, and that will work. All right, come over here, we have this, and I can delete that and see how it refreshes. It's really nice. And here I can search for other things. So let's say I want a Flutter, I can hit search, and I have it. So I want to apply for this job. Do I have it? Do I have this job? I am applying for this job again. So I'm going to go on Flutter, and I want this job. So I'm going to apply for this job. Okay. And now I can come back over here, and I have this job over here. So I can delete this job. It is gone. I'm no longer applying for it. So really nice flow. And especially the fact that we are using Typesense here, and we're also using GraphQL everywhere, right? So for details, we're using GraphQL here to load all of this. And it's extremely quick, and it's a lot easier than creating these views and stuff like that. You can just specify. But whenever you need to delete something, you can just delete it using regular SQL, because that's typically how it works. You don't need GraphQL for that. And so it makes it super easy and super seamless to build all kinds of apps in all kinds of niches like that. Now, if you enjoyed this video tutorial, remember, you will be able to view and or clone this exact app, and pretty much all my apps in the past, all my apps I'm going to be doing in the future. Connect with awesome people, get more value, get more content, and of course, above all, support this channel and support my work, then definitely check out our amazing Patreon community. by clicking the first link in the description below the video. I hope to see you there.